All right. So nursing to business is possible. So I'll be sharing with you and everybody on the call today how I got into nursing, and also how I went from nursing into business, and how I use both, my license in nursing as well as my business degree to work in my current role. So here's a small kind of timeline of what I went through. And one of the things that I learned right off the bat was that you have to know yourself in order to make the best decisions for you. I was a Northwood High School student as well a couple years ago, and I graduated from Northwood High School. And right after I graduated, I took a couple of ROP classes. So during my junior year and my senior year, I took some nursing introduction to healthcare classes, and kind of got myself familiar with the industry. Once I graduated, I went immediately into my vocational program, where I received my LVN license as a nurse. And at the age of 19, I started working as an LVN. I went from hospitals like emergency departments to urgent centers to convalescent homes, which nursing homes, and then I ended up in pediatrics. So I was a pediatric nurse for about 8 years before I transitioned over to the business side of nursing. So during my job experience, I started noticing that there were a couple of disconnects, if you were to say, between policies and procedures and patient care. There were some high expectations on day-to-day floor nursing, and it didn't make sense most of the time. So I went back to receive my bachelor's degree in business with a concentration on managing projects. And now I'm able to use both that license in clinical patient care and my business license to oversee Southern California operations for one of the largest healthcare companies here in California. So that's kind of a little bit about myself. And now let me get a little bit into maybe what you guys want to know about, which is the structure of healthcare, the opportunities, the career opportunities, patient care management, and how they kind of coexist all together. So the question usually when you're in high school or in college is, what are the requirements? What are the qualifications? How do I get from my current, student position to the healthcare field? So this chart here really kind of depicts in a high level the complexity of our healthcare system. So of course you have patient care. You have in a hospital labs, diagnosis, or x-rays, you have clinical directors, you have quality, you have nursing, you have all those components and more in the hospital. But then the hospital needs to run a business, right? So you'll have finance, you'll have all the other supporting departments, and then you have human resources, and then you have administration. So all this, different positions, opportunities, careers have different pathways. And so one thing that I encourage my team members that I mentor is that really understand where their passion is at. What do they want to do? If you're afraid of blood, don't go into nursing, because that's what you're going to be doing. If you don't want to take care of sick people, don't go into nursing, because that's what you're going to be doing. But if you're more interested in managing the day-to-day operations, making sure that the employees are well taken care of, if you want to be the financial director in healthcare, then those are other opportunities away from patient care, but that are also impacting patient care indirectly. Now, from this side, you might ask yourself, well, what are some of the rewards that you get as a nurse or as a business person? I found this quote very interesting because I think it depicts very clearly the nursing side of things. And then I can talk a little bit about some of the rewards working in a dual capacity as a nurse and as a project manager. So this quote here highlights it perfectly. So being a nurse is not about your grades, right? It's not about being, but it's more about being who we are as individuals. So there's no book, there's no textbook that can teach you how to cry with a patient. And there's no class that can teach you how to tell a family member that their loved ones are dying, or even give difficult conversations with those um, family members on their diagnosis, prognosis, or any of difficult conversations. They don't teach you that in school. And there's no professors that can teach you how to find dignity in giving someone a best bath, maybe because they had a car accident or because now all of a sudden they can take care of themselves. So a nurse is all about, you know, putting aside your skills, putting aside your grades, putting aside the documentation, and it's really about loving people and taking care of them at their weakest point. Now, true, there are some nurses in the healthcare field that go in for the money, but you can definitely see the difference in the care when there's someone who is in nursing for the passion or they're just there for a paycheck. So that's why knowing yourself, knowing what exactly you want to do is very important, because there's not a paycheck high enough. If you really do not like taking care of people, that will convince you to stay. And during pandemic, during this COVID, that's been the number one kind of disheartening that you will see from individuals in the healthcare field that are trying to leave, because the long hours, the risk to getting sick, the risk of caring for someone with the virus is just way too high, that if that's not their passion, they see themselves out. A reward working on the other side, which is the business side, I think that I can kind of share with the group that it's kind of being an interpreter. When you speak with a doctor or when you speak with a clinical person, they're reactive, right? So nursing is reactive. Nursing, the medical field is, we're gonna make you feel better now that you are sick. And even though there are, preventative medicine, a lot of nursing skills are, how do you stop the bleeding? How do you decrease the blood pressure? How do you do something to make that individual feel better? Business, on the other side, is proactive. Business is all about, how do you prevent patient fall? How do you reduce the risk of burnout? How do you analyze a cohort of data and interpret what that data set is telling you? And so being that interpreter between the clinical world and the business world has given me a niche, if you want to call it that, to really understand both sides in the interest of both parties. So if nursing, for example, wants to have a 3-month vacation, how do we now prove that that's a good business idea with data? If business wants to now say, for example, they want to open a new hospital, how many nurses do they need? So how do we develop a staffing matrix? How do we ensure that we have the right number of staff to make the hospital run successful, and at the same time not have needle sticks or not have accidentally sentinel events? So the business and the clinical side helped me to kind of speak the language and be the mediator or the interpreter between both parties. So if they're trying to open up a new hospital and, let's say, have a robotic department so that they can use the robots to do surgery, business will then tell me, well, how much would it cost? What's the return on investment? How do we advertise it, and so on and so forth. So those are the rewards that I experience from my profession, having the dual viewpoints in the matter. The other question that was asked to me are the challenges, and I kind of paused here, and I think that this picture depicts it well. With COVID, overwork, I don't think it's not only nursing, but you can see it all across the industries. For example, the restaurant business, you can see it everywhere. The schools, the challenges are clearly depicted on the picture. It's just being tired, overworked. Even in school, right? Being how to learn to be remote, how to take your classes virtually. How do you come back to school? So there was a lot of learning, a lot of anxieties during this difficult time. But in nursing, some of the challenges are related and goes back to knowing self. It's knowing how to say no without saying no. It's knowing how to take a break when you want to keep going. It's knowing that You are not Superman. It's knowing that you don't have special powers and you're not going to sleep or you're not going to eat. And unfortunately, I made those mistakes early in my career. I used to skip lunch. I used to work 24-hour days. I used to have 2 to 3 jobs in hospitals, convalescent, pediatrics, and it's not healthy because even though you are getting a lovely paycheck that you can buy all the gadgets that you want, you're not taking care of yourself. And what I learned is that I didn't know what I wanted, and all I did was work and work and work. So knowing yourself and understanding when your limits are being reached is very important in the field. And in the business side as well, business is all about working long hours. It's about anticipating all the possible risks, having a plan B, a plan C, a plan D. I mean, you can run out of plans, but it's that expectation that you're supposed to anticipate it. You're supposed to understand your staffing. You're supposed to understand your data sets. And one of the things in the challenges of in the business side and the healthcare is that understanding that data only gives you 80% of the picture. So you can be the best math statistics individual and you can have a solid business plan, but you only have 80% of the story. Data only gives you 80%. 20% is real life. It's sitting with the front line. It's understanding the processes. It's understanding what it means to be tired. It's understanding maybe sometimes even giving a day off when you're going to be short staffed because that staff member really needs a mental day to recover or come back the next day and do a better job. So those are some of the challenges, but again, those are not just systematic to nursing. There are things across the industry and whatever path or career you're looking for, you're gonna see those challenges, having that balance between you and work. And the question that I also was prompted to ask here some tips. So here are some tips I think that will help if anybody is interested in going into nursing, going into healthcare, is explore what you want to do. And like I said earlier, if patient care is your passion, understand the different types of licenses there is. But if healthcare business is your passion, if you want to be the CEO, the CFO, you want to be the a senior vice president in the company, those are all great, but again, that's away from patient care. So really understand where does your passion lay on. So if you're looking for patient care, I provided a brief list of multiple licenses and certifications that exist in nursing. It goes from the least amount of years of schooling all the way to many years of experience. So here you have, for example, a CNA, certified nurse assistant that help the nurses take care of the patients in the hospitals. And the same level, you have an MA who now takes care of the patients that are coming into an ambulatory setting. And then you have LVNs, RNs, and then if RNs, you can now become a nurse practitioner where you are kind of have the ability to see patients, prescribe medication, kind of be like a doctor without the surgical experience. And then a peer for the NPs is the PAs, which I didn't include here because they're not, they're more into you don't have to be a nurse to be a PA. And then of course, then you have your most centralized or more specialized field, like if you're a nurse anesthesiologist, a CRNA that only focus in working in pain medications and reducing the pain during surgery. And then if you love pediatrics or live OB, nurse midwives, taking care of the pregnant mothers and also their children or their child after they're born. But I hope that this presentation helps. I mean, the key, fact to remember is that the career path depends on the end goals you have. Because there's multiple ways to get to where you want. You just want to make sure you choose what is best for you. You want to make sure that if you have the ability to, right after high school, go into an RN program, that's probably your best option. But if you don't have the means to go directly into an RN program, you have your other options. Maybe you can go into an LVN vocational program. It's only a year and a half, and then start working. And then once you work, you can pay off, your programs and continue pursuing your education. But know yourself, know what you want, understand that there's multiple ways to get to your path, and your goal is really to just understand patient care, healthcare, or business. And one of the things I believe my last slide here is some of the related fields of ROP. If you joined late, you might have missed, but I was introduced to the nursing healthcare world through ROP. So I did take I think I took all of these classes. I think that I took the medical health and system. I did my internship at Hogue. I did my nursing career internship. And then I did my CNA in the summer, my senior year after my summer school after my senior year that I graduated. And then from there, I went through my vocational program. So again, all these classes are meant for you to explore, understand where you want to see yourself in the healthcare. And that concludes my presentation. Hopefully that was helpful. And is there questions or?
So students, at this point, you can just, unmute yourselves and ask Mr. Escoto any questions you'd like to ask him, okay?
All right, let's see. I think there's some questions in the chat too.
Let's see. There were some that I had about checking in.
Oh, this is great. There's no questions, I think. Overwhelmed, question mark.
Yeah. Yunji Lee, did you have a question about that? No, okay. So a question I can ask first, I can kind of kick it off is, from your perspective, did you find it hard to move from nursing to business? Was it something that was easy or hard for you? And how could you relate that to someone who is curious to do that as well?
Yeah, I could definitely address that question. I think there's a question in the chat though. It's pressed twice. So let me start there. So the question in the chat is, what can you do in high school that can help you start off your nursing career? Well, I took ROP classes just to understand the nursing, because if you know that you want to be a nurse, try to get something in the internship. So I don't know if nowadays they do an internship at Hogue in Newport Beach, but that helped me kind of understand that, okay, this is something I can do. They also have the CNA class, which is a certified nursing assistant that I took, that really introduced me into nursing homes and kind of gave me an overview of what it was to take care of someone in need, like the older individuals that are in a nursing care facility, or the individuals that are in rehab, right? And they need to be taken care of. Those things I did during high school, and that helped me kind of continue with my desires to be a nurse. I always wanted to be a nurse because I wanted to help people. So I just like to have that feeling that you have a headache and, hey, you know what? You don't have to take medicine. Try to massage in between your thumb and your index finger. That pressure point there will release your headache. Or drink some water. Or if somebody, doesn't know how to control their blood pressure, right? Or they're eating too much salt. I just really like how our body is created and how our body is made, and understanding what our actions affect, our bodies by disease manifestation. So I always love that, and that's what got me into nursing. The transition into business was something natural for me, because in the point of my career, I already had worked in hospitals, and I was working in the pediatric unit in an ambulatory setting, and they were all about trying to prevent medicine, right? So it was preventative medicine, and we were immunizing pediatric patients. We were trying to prevent flu from spreading. And at that time, we had measles outbreak at Disneyland. We had Ebola. We had just so many viruses and epidemics and pandemics that it was just a natural fit for me to transition into business, trying to mitigate how do you take care of your staff and how do you take care of the patient at the same time. So for me, that was an easy transition. I currently have three employees that went into healthcare that did not like blood, but they actually went into directly to business to pursue kind of how to manage hospitals, how to manage, policies. So for me, the transition was natural, and it was just an easy fit due to the world events that I was living in at that time.
Is there any other questions that you guys have? We really appreciate. Oh, one more. In the process of becoming a nurse, is the process of becoming a nurse hard?
Okay, so from academic perspective, there's a lot of reading. But I made it a point to understand the why. So you can go to school and read and memorize facts, and that becomes hard, right? Because if you're trying to understand facts and just memorize, it's just gonna be overwhelming. My class started with about 102 nursing students. The first 3 months, maybe half of the class dropped, and then every 3 months, which was a new term, maybe like 2 and up to 5 people continued to drop. My final class, the graduating class in my program, was from 102, only 43 graduated. So hard is relevant. What might be hard for me might not be hard for you. But academic wise, you just have to know, make it a game. Understand that if you don't have insulin, for example, then you can't digest your sugars. And if that's the case, what happens if your body has too much sugar? Then you start understanding the systems in your body that might process those sugars and what organs are going to start being impacted. So then your next question is, well, how do you balance that imbalance? So that's how I took nursing. So for me, it was kind of a fun detective game, because I just love that process, cause, and effect kind of how the body reacts. But yeah, I hope that answers your question. Academic wise, for me, it was fun just understanding. It was way different from high school because now it's something that I really love to do. But yeah, once you get into a nursing, the field of nursing, I think that it could be hard in different ways. You're waking up, maybe you work a night shift, maybe you work the swing shift in 3 to 11. That's not the fun shift at all. So it's really how you define hard.
Is there any other questions you guys want to ask our speaker today? Okay. All righties. If there's no more questions, we can, end the session. Just be mindful that this is a recording. And so make sure if you have any friends who missed the session, we'll have it available to everyone on Google Classroom. We'll have it available there. Also, before everyone goes, if you can please fill out the evaluation link here to kind of give us a little feedback what you enjoyed of this session. And if there's no further questions for Mr. Escoto, we all can give him a virtual thanks or whatever. And we'll.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, thank you so much, guys. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And if you have any questions, you can always email me. Again, for those who missed the first introduction, Mr. Escoto is actually my husband. And so if you have any questions, you can email me. I'm Mrs. Escoto. I'm the RP career specialist at Portola. And so I can get you in touch with him if any further questions you had on his pathway. Okay. Thanks for taking time and hanging out with us. All right, everyone. Have a good one. Bye.